Thank you for joining us at Toy Fair University. Next up, we have how to drive retailer sell-in and consumer sell-through in a crowded market. Our moderator is David Becker at Blue Plate Media Services. David?
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to carve out some time and meet with us today for our panel. Our panel is how to drive retailer sell-in and consumer sell-through in a crowded market. It's a pretty timely conversation, and we look forward to sharing with you some of our insights. My name is David Becker. I'm the president and co-founder of Blue Plate Media Services. We're a media agency that focuses on play. I'd like to just start with a little quote that I think is apropos. Never let your failures go to your heart, and never let your successes go to your head. Why am I telling you this? Because in this crazy industry of ours, very often you need to recreate yourself, reinvent yourself every year. You need to dream up something new. You need to think of something new. That requires you to think it, to develop it, to design it. You need to prototype it. You need to test it. You need to research it. You need to package it. You need to present it. You need to sell it in. And that's not so easy. It's quite the journey, and it's quite the investment, and it's really important. And how do you break through when everyone else in the industry is trying to do the same thing? You can have the best product in the world, and all of us believe we have the best product in the world. But if you don't sell it in, it could literally be sitting in the basement of the What If Museum, and we don't want that. So how do we tilt the scales in our favor? And that's really what this presentation is about. We have a wonderful panel of experts that I'd like to just introduce you to for 1 second, if you don't mind, and then we'll jump right into a discussion. So Michelle Weber, raise your hand. Michelle is a former buyer of Target. She was there for 10 years. She's an EVP at Toyin' Around, and they're a leading rep group selling into Target. She knows what she's talking about. She's going to share a lot of her insights with you today. Julie Gwaltney. Julie. Julie is VP at Tomy International. She's responsible for a number of different duties. One is product development, sourcing, and also selling in. She knows what to do to get the product sold in and into the hands of the consumer. Andy Wiseman. There you are, Andy. Andy's a partner at Lean in Bentonville. He was, not only did he work at various toy cos, he was also the CEO of a leading toy company. Andy understands every angle of marketing and how to sell your product in, and he's going to share his insights today. Denise Vannucci. Denise is a partner and co-founder of Blue Plate Media Services, and she's an expert in building and executing media plans to reach and engage with moms and kids and families across platforms. And she has a lot of experience of what the retailers are expecting, and she'll be sharing her insights. And Tim Jones. Tim is a media director at BPMS, Blue Plate Media, and he's also the past account director at Toys R Us for 7 years. Tim has a very interesting take and an understanding of retail sales when it comes to toys. He knows what levers to pull to be able to drive the sales that are so important in today's landscape. So with that said, let's get started. I'm going to just sit over here and ask some questions. And the first question I'd like to toss out is actually to Andy and to Julie. So you could just double team on this one. When you're reviewing new products, is there such thing as an it factor? Is there something out there that tells you, oh my God, this is the product?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, of course, like you said up there, everybody thinks that they have the it factor in their with their product. And I think that we look at a lot of things that we, in the toy business, think will never sell, but for some reason they blow out. It's a very hard thing to I think, qualify. But I would say that from our perspective in our business, we see a lot of product. And when a product has some sort of history online, especially lately, that when things start picking up, even if it's a marketplace item, and you've got a tailwind behind it and it's really picking up, I think you can really kind of identify. One of the easiest ways to identify if your product has the it factor today is by testing it as a marketplace seller at Walmart or at Amazon or anywhere, and you can really understand without having to guess if your product has an it factor. That's what I would think.
I would agree. I would add that to your first point, I think a lot of us in product development and marketing will see something and we'll think this is the item. Gosh, we're so excited about this, and then it doesn't happen. And I think what you have to keep in mind is the it factor is always going to be determined not just by the buyer, but by that end consumer. So when Andy's talking about data on Amazon or somewhere else, that's really important because it's validating from the person you're actually making it for that it is and it does have the it factor. So really important to take into your buyers.
We don't have to guess as much as we used to. That's the truth.
Very true.
So, Julie, we're going to stick with you for 1 second. So let's just say you have a great new product, one that is going to just blow open the category. It's truly innovative. You're so excited about it. And what steps do you take to secure a meeting with a buyer with this wonderful new item you have? And not only what steps do you take to secure the buyer meeting, but are there any steps you take to then prepare for that buyer meeting?
So it depends on your situation. We have direct relationships with buyers in some cases, and in other cases, we work with someone like Andy or Michelle in order to make those introductions. And I think it's really important, first and foremost, that whether it's you or whether it's your retail group partner, that it's someone who has a relationship with that buyer who can help you understand what that buyer is looking for. Because every buyer is a little different. Even within the same category, if you get a new buyer, it might be a different situation. So kind of anticipating what is important to that buyer, what metrics or KPIs are important, and then really framing that pitch around what is going to be important to them. We always approach it with kind of the lens of the consumer, but you also have to think, what am I going to need to do to get past the buyer? Not that they're a block, but they are the decision maker. And it's really important to show them how they are going to be successful, how their store is going to be successful with that particular product. So really framing it both like we know the consumer's going to like it, but also here's what it can do for you as well.
Thank you. Michelle, so how do you get the pitch meeting? And not just how do you get the pitch meeting, but for everyone's edification, do you go into a pitch meeting pitching one particular product, or are you getting a meeting and going in there and presenting like a portfolio of brands and hoping that one sticks? How does that work?
So, great question. I think it's really important as you go into the pitch meeting to ensure that you're really leading with a strong reason to meet. You need to ensure that you've got value at every interaction along that journey. As we know, everyone is busy, but buyers are really busy. And so you need to make sure that that product really focuses on what the buyer is most interested in. So at Genesis, we consult on and strategize with our clients, and we take them through like a 10-step process that's really focused on assessment, preparation, and then winning at shelf. So that when you do show up in the room for that meeting, you're really focused on the product and building your brand and really highlighting your overall capabilities to create credibility and certainty for that buyer. I think it's really important because it's about the product and the portfolio story that really shows that long-term partnership potential.
Thank you. Andy, I guess on that note, just as a follow-up, how do you advise your clients to best prepare for a Walmart meeting? And I know you're really immersed. You live in Bentonville. You know the people. You've got the relationships. But how do you communicate that to your clients? And also, are there any cautionary tales you might have that you'd like to share?
I got a lot of cautionary tales. Not enough time to talk about them all. I think, being prepared is really what the question is about, and getting the attention of the buyer. I think it's really important. This will sound a little self-serving, but just for context, when I ran my own toy company, I didn't use a rep group at Walmart for many years. I didn't think I needed to. I lived in Bentonville. I built the business there. But over time, I realized I really did need more help. I just needed support. But what you get when you have a talented rep group, in addition to support, is context. Because at Lean In, we touch every toy category. And we have several clients that are very strong in the toy and games categories. And we have this context because of the knowledge that
like a holistic view as opposed to living in your cocoon.
Correct. Yep. So we, some of the most important and most meaningful value that we offer anybody is not just the relationships and the way to open the door, but it's everything that we know that's currently ongoing, current strategies, what a certain buyer is looking to do with a category, for example. So that knowledge is really important. And because we have that context, it's actually easier for us to get meetings. And it's easier for us to prepare. So that context is important.
I imagine the buyers trust you also. They know that you understand what's going on and that you're not going to waste their time with a meeting.
Well, we start every meeting by asking questions. The best salespeople ask questions. We always start every single one of our line reviews with the question, what is your strategy for the category? Okay.
Michelle, so obviously there's only so much room on the shelf, unless they need a bigger store, right? So there's only so much room. How difficult is it for a small product company to sell into Target when all of the larger players are getting the meetings and they're commanding the shelf? And I guess conversely, how difficult is it for a larger company to maintain their shelf space when all the smaller companies are trying to push them out?
Yeah, so great question. I think it's really important to know that it's competitive for everyone. And I think there's challenges that differ depending upon the size of the company. So smaller companies, their barrier really isn't just about getting the meeting, it's really about providing that you can drive the productivity that retailers need. So retailers are looking for differentiation, strong gross margin, and honestly, operational reliability. And so making sure that you stay focused on your 1 to 2 standout items, offering strong value propositions, and then really having a clear plan for marketing that really leads into overall operational excellence. I think it's really important to say that ultimately you need to show how you can grow the category versus just taking up space on the retailer shelf. And if you are able to communicate that, buyers will listen. From a bigger company perspective, the challenge really shifts from access more into performance. And so shelf space isn't guaranteed. It's earned at every retailer reset. And these bigger guys know what the productivity hurdles are, and they're expected to hit those productivity metrics. They're expected to bring innovation and having really strong marketing to support the sell-through. So if a brand becomes complacent, what's going to happen is that the buyer is going to look to reallocate that space. In summary, shelf space is earned. And I think that the real big question that you should be asking is, are you helping the retailer win?
Thank you. Obviously, it's important to sell in, and to jump on Michelle's point, it's important to sell through. And Julie, so you get the meeting. Does your buyer in the meeting often share their ideas of what they think you should be doing from a marketing perspective? Do they share ideas? Or do you like to build a marketing plan perhaps in advance of a meeting to show your buyer that you're going to be supporting the product once it actually hits shelf?
Personally, I would always walk into a meeting with that marketing plan because A, it shows that you're committed to whatever it is you're sharing from a product perspective. It shows that you've thought through what the consumer is going to be looking for, how you're going to communicate to them, how you're going to get them to come into that retailer and push the consumer sell-through. But you have to go in with the mindset that you're going to be collaborative because you're going to walk into a meeting potentially and learn some things. As Andy said, you ask questions at the beginning. Oh, hey, we're going to have a focal that's focusing on card games, or we're really supporting license X, Y, or Z. You may not know that going into the meeting. You may find that out. And so as you're sharing your marketing plan, be open to pivoting because while you might have the consumer mindset in mind, again, you want to set the retailer up for success. You want to partner with them where possible. And having that feedback really means that you have a partner in that retailer. That buyer is your partner. You're going to work on it together, make those changes to the marketing plan, and drive sell-through for both of us.
All right. Denise, so today, paid media is clearly more complex than it's ever been. In your experience, in the conversations that you have with clients on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the misconceptions that toy and game marketers might have today?
Well, we listened to Michelle, had a great point, winning on shelf. Well, our product now, Michelle, Andy, they sold your product in to Walmart, Target, or it's sitting in Amazon. What now? That product isn't going to move on its own. The retailers are depending on you drawing in traffic, bringing that traffic in. How do we bring that traffic to the shelf, to that SKU, that one item sitting slightly below eye level at times? We need to create awareness. We need to create demand for the product. We need to educate the consumer. You have this great doll. It wiggles, it squiggles, it talks, it walks, it drinks, it does everything. Well, the consumer does not know that. You have to tell the consumer. How do we tell the consumer? We need to build awareness. We need to have video content. We need to show the consumer that they need this product, and then drive demand of this product, drive demand to the shelf, drive demand online. It's really important to educate the client first. A lot of clients, potential clients, really believe that a lower funnel, I need to make the sale, I need to get there quicker, I need to create my search campaign, whether it's within the platform, it's Google search, it's Amazon, it's Walmart search, Target search. That's a very difficult journey if nobody is aware of your product or the product benefits. And then who are we targeting? Who are we advertising to? That's a really important consideration. Are we educating the child and the mom needs to know, or are we just educating the mom and the child will understand and have that product and have that product grow in the family? You'll buy a second product, a third product. Education is awareness.
Andy, once you sell in, what are the expectations from your buyer in terms of measurement for success? And what's that ramp up period? And are they expecting you also to play a role in driving awareness and the product sales? But I guess the big question is, what are the measurement metrics that they're expecting out of the gate, perhaps?
Well, I mean, they're different for every category, but they're productivity metrics that you're expected to hit. You know, it's sales per linear square inch, for example. It's different for different categories. Puzzles would be completely different, for example, than would action figures. You have to understand what that is, and you need to communicate. Like, you need to ask, if you don't understand what those expectations are, you need to ask your buyer to tell you. And you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of times they come right back to you and they ask for that. So you need to go in there with an idea of what productivity should look like. And this is, again, a part of the preparation process. You know, you need to have a sense of what kind of demand you're going to drive. You got to, like Julie's talking about, Denise here, you've got to go in with a plan to drive it. You got to talk about what it could be.
Okay.
Yep.
So Michelle, so we already talked about this a little bit, but do your retail buyers encourage you to come to a pitch meeting with a detailed plan, or is it something that is kind of more, work in progress? I know that when you're showing a plan, let's say at a meeting, I think there was a time where people would just put together a plan and say, look what we're going to do, and they had no real intention of doing that. I think the buyer needs to see some they need to believe that it's authentic. What's your feeling about that?
I would totally agree with you that intentionality and realism are extremely important. All buyers expect to see both a marketing and media plan, which ultimately creates a clear plan of action as to how you are going to support the sell-through of the product. Shelf space is an investment for those retailers, and they, again, want confidence in knowing that you are going to drive productivity and traffic to their aisles. I think it's really great to think of it as that marketing is part of the pitch. It's not an add-on. It is required. In some of our buyer meetings, actually, we spend majority of the time more speaking to the marketing versus even the product. I think it was said earlier that if you have a great product and no one knows about it, it's not going to sell. So that marketing is really critical to having that success. Again, things that we do at Genesis for our clients is, we have meetings, obviously, before the buyer meeting in which we really look to outline how the brand will support marketing through influencer, social, digital, and in-store activations, and try to align that with your retailer's promotional sequence as well. So intentional, realistic is absolutely critical. And by coming in with that plan, it really shows the buyer that you're thinking beyond the sale, which is really important. It's about the execution at that point. It builds credibility and really works to position you as that long-term partner that understands the retailer's needs.
Hey, Tim, a question for you. I know you've been a little quiet in this conversation. So, as a marketer specializing in kids and family products, do your clients want to understand what the competitive set is doing? Does that give them any kind of a glimpse into what they should be doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. To win in a category, you have to know what battle you're in. And the retail buyers see marketing plans for everybody in the category. So they're really up to speed on what's going on and what's been moving the needle, what might be changing. And you want to make certain that you know how you measure up in that category and that you're able to demonstrate how well you can deliver against your sell-through, sell-in, and how you measure up, even if you don't have the same kind of a budget. There may be ways that you can get a significant advantage, and you can show how you're going to reach your target audience.
Well, that's a good lead into my next question for you. Budget is obviously a factor, and money doesn't fall from the sky. The money has to come from someplace to be able to support the product, and I could talk about that for a while. But Tim, I'm curious, from your perspective, how much money does it take to actually make a media plan in 2026 work? And then you have to be able to communicate that into a plan to a buyer, but the buyer needs to know that it's not just a pretty chart, that whatever it is that you're doing is actually going to help to sell that product through. So is there a budget? How do you establish a budget? And will the budget deliver what that buyer needs to see?
Sure. So there is no definitive threshold for a budget. There's no guarantees on anything in this category or in toy categories or in other categories. How well a media plan supports a product launch or a product is dependent upon a number of variables that are both in your control and also out of your control. But that being said, I'll throw out some numbers and kind of tell you kind of where we see the most effective range. From a pre-Easter perspective or say a summer perspective, we're talking $300,000 to $750,000 in mass media spend. From a July to December supporting that fall sell, we're looking at $1 million plus. And at these levels, they will provide you with enough support across enough platforms and enough media screens, different screens, and enough weeks across the sales period that you're going to put your product in a better position to sell through. And at those levels I just mentioned, you're going to be reasonably assured that you're going to have substantial support, that support's going to be a factor in sales performance. But here's the bottom line. There's a reality here. At the end of the day, you have the budget that you have. It's what you can afford. And our job is to really help you build the most effective plan that you can. And sometimes that means we have to make trade-offs. It means that we do a lot of competitive analysis. We know a lot about what's going on in the categories. And so we're able to come to you with some competitive advantage, or what we know is the first place you spend, and the next place you spend, and the next place you spend as your budget increases. And that's, it's something that, it can be very fluid, but just to kind of give you a guideline, there are some benchmarks that matter.
Okay. Denise, what role do you play as you're developing these plans? What role do you play in balancing the media investment and allocating the correct amount of dollars that align with the retailer's initiative? And also, to best support product at retail, should marketers lean into paid media, earned media, or retail media? I know these are some big questions, but retail media is on the top of everyone's tongue these days, and I think we probably should talk to it.
I think let's start there. What is the balance between paid media and retail media? Well, I talked earlier, we all talked about we have to let the consumer know that product exists in the market. How do we do that? They need to become aware. Video, digital, social content creators, all of these platforms and tactics help bring awareness to your product. So we drove the demand. We're driving the demand of the product. Now we have to convert that consumer. One of the ways, the very ROAS-based way to convert the consumer is through retail media. Retail media, many may not know what that is, but that's search within the platform across Amazon, Walmart, and Target. That is a place, that is a conversion tactic. We've got the customer, they're aware of the customer. Now we have to capture and convert that customer. So both tactics, when we talk about paid media and retail media as two different buckets, they both work together. One does start the conversation and one ends the conversation. Both are very important in the retail media, in the retail, selling your product to the consumer.
So we've talked a little bit about selling in, and we've talked a little bit about selling through, and how do you best prepare so you can be responsible when you actually win this meeting, or when Andy or Michelle go in there and get this meeting. You want to be able to do the best that you can to have a positive outcome. I would like to ask just a couple of questions now to the group, and we can kind of just jump in as you'd like. But from your collective experience, is there a no-no, anything specific that people shouldn't do when they've got this meeting?
So I can take that first, and then you guys can all add on. I think it's really important to make sure that when you walk into that pitch, that you're not only focused on your product, but rather you're focused on what the retailer needs are and where their growth is. And so buyers really respond best when it shows that you understand their consumer needs, their assortment, and their business goals. So if you start with that, I think it's a great way to make sure that you don't have any issues.
I'll add to that. Yeah, I mean, like, go into a Walmart store before your meeting. I would start there. I mean, understand what things look like. You'd be surprised how many people come to town that have a Walmart meeting, and they haven't been in a Walmart in 6 months or a year. Go to the store and look around. That's one thing you really got to do. And the next thing I would say is, don't think that no is really no forever. If you get a no and a pass, find out why. Don't give up. And then you can change it maybe.
Yeah.
I would just add that it's really important to listen in the meetings. Listen, take notes, take it back, modify, change, because you're learning, and that learning is invaluable when you go back to the buyer. To your point, no's not, maybe it's a no today, but next time it won't be a no. You want to have that knowledge that you picked up in that meeting to go back. So please be sure to listen. And I know sometimes people kind of get excited and they want to answer a question and start to talk over a buyer. Try not to do that. Just listen and learn, absorb, and then come back the next time.
How often are the buyers giving you feedback so you can come back for that second meeting with a little bit, a little more polished? Are they giving you a second chance to come back in?
Sometimes. I think, I've experienced it different ways. I think it helps to have a partner again, like Michelle or Andy, who really know the buyer, because I've been in meetings where I'm like, she's loving this. Like, this is great, because there's not a no and there's questions. And then we'll come out and then we get a no. We're like, what happened? I thought it was so great. And it's A, maybe they haven't seen everything yet when you had that meeting. But B, some buyers are just not going to tell you no in the meeting. They're going to get more information and they're going to continue to go. So I think you do get another opportunity, but it's going to depend.
We always get second chances. And you know what? I usually get third chances. That's the truth.
Let me ask you, so obviously we go into this meeting, we all drink our own Kool-Aid, we love our product, and is it always the big win? Do you always get, like, Walmart's going to take it in all the stores, oh my God, or do they give you an opportunity to test a couple of stores, and is that something that you embrace or something that you want to stay away from?
You want to answer that?
Sure, I can start. No, I think, any opportunity that you have from a retailer, if they're excited about your product, you should absolutely assess it, make sure it makes sense for you, make sure you have a right marketing plan to be able to support any type of range of store count or online only, because that will be your chance and they'll measure that productivity. So if you have an opportunity for a test, I would suggest you strongly consider it, because it could be your one opportunity. But I think you need to go all in on it and make sure that you're supporting it appropriately to really drive that productivity that retailer needs to see.
Yeah, at Walmart, they don't test like they used to in 100 stores, typically. They don't really do that much anymore, but they do expect you to prove demand using Marketplace a lot of times. And a lot of our clients, their eyes roll in the back of their head when they're, challenged to go sell their product on Marketplace to prove it. And I mean, there's not a lot of volume there sometimes to start. But we have had some enormous success starting small on Marketplace with some brands. Skillmatics is a great one, for example. We have turned that business into an enormous business that started with Marketplace. So there is a way to test, and we have been successful doing it. It's not the old school 100 stores like it used to be, though.
Andy, could you tell everybody what Marketplace is, just in case?
Yeah,
they
that's
don't know?
Walmart's selling platform. Basically, if you're a Marketplace vendor, your product is listed on Walmart.com. You fulfill the orders using their platform.
How long does it take you to actually get a meeting? So someone comes to you and they say, oh my gosh, we want to work with you. You interview each other, make sure you feel comfortable. You gear up, you prepare. Now you've got to go out and try to secure that meeting. How hard is it to get the meeting, and how long does it take? And one other question. Does the seller, does the manufacturer come with you to these meetings, or you go without them?
We get all the meetings we want with Walmart whenever we want them. That's the truth. It's really easy for us. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it is a challenge sometimes, but I think, and I'm sure, Michelle, it's similar for you. You know, when you're in the categories, you kind of get a sense, and you were working this business every day, and you look at a product line, you can kind of tell if you're going to get an audience or not. And, we tend to be selective, and so we do have a good hit rate. It takes time sometimes.
Do you bring your client with you, or
Yeah,
or no?
our clients most of the time attend and present alongside us. Sometimes we do it ourselves. It depends.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd like to just ask now to kind of wrap things up, just again to the group, is there any one particular tip or something you'd like to say that hasn't been asked or hasn't been discussed that you think might be able to help the group here and to kind of get them one step closer to getting that product into Walmart, into Target, into mass, and sold through as well?
There you go. And you can help with that from a media standpoint. I would just say that if you kind of lead with focusing on the retailer's success as much as your own, I think that that's a really important formula for bringing everyone together and really working towards, the outcome that you want to see. So you need to start with the retailer and what they need to see, and then figure out how your product can further amplify and drive incrementality and growth to their category.
Got to make them believe they need you.
Absolutely.
So,
I do have one more thing to add.
yes.
When you have the retailer believe that they need you, you also need the consumer to understand, and you need to present creative that tells your story in an authentic and believable way. So that creative is very important. And when we talk about creative, it might not be one piece of creative, one video that tells the story, the complete story. You have to remember, in this industry, in this arena, many of the products are for kids. They're targeted to kids. We have to talk to the kid. We also have to talk to the mom or the grandparent, the gift giver. They're two different pieces of creative. They're two different audiences, and we really need to talk to both at the same time.
Well, clearly, driving success at retail today takes strategy, it takes planning, it takes hard work. It doesn't just happen. And we don't want to blow an opportunity. If we get the opportunity to have the meeting, we want to be prepared for it. I would like to thank everyone for coming out and joining us today. Great to meet everyone. And if you have any questions, we'll be answering questions right over here near the yellow couches. So thank you. Have a wonderful toy fair, and thank you for joining us. Oh, and thank you to our panelists. That's what I meant to say.